I guess he didn't follow Mr. Collins' advice because Lydia and Wickham returned to the Bennett residence, and not only that, they have lunch. I mean, they sit down and eat and everything. And all right, Evie, Wickham and Lydia arrive with an easy assurance, like they've
Hmm.
done nothing wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
They don't return like the prodigal son. I'm not even worthy to be your child. Please take
Hmm.
me on as a hired hand. I'm not, and then the father, of course, welcomes them back in. Hey, we're
As the
back.
father should.
Yeah, as a father should. But they come
Hmm.
back without 1 ounce of remorse. They come back. She said, easy, and enough. This was enough to provoke anger even out of Mr. Bennett, and Elizabeth was disgusted. And
Yeah.
even they were all shocked. And Lydia was still Lydia, untamed, unabashed, wild, noisy, and fearless. She turned from sister to sister, demanding their congratulations,
Right.
demanding it. Like people do that today. They celebrate their sins. I mean, when somebody gets knocked up and then they are proud of it, you know, I'm not saying you shouldn't
Hmm.
celebrate a life. I'm not saying anything like that. So
Of
don't
course,
anybody
yeah.
take that the wrong way. But my goodness, have a little bit of tact and realize, you know what? Uh, we can pick up the pieces and move forward and make this right. But
Hmm.
don't celebrate the fact, like act like Lydia, like you've done nothing wrong, or whatever. And when at length they all sat down, she looked easily around the room, or eagerly around the room, I should say. She took some notice of some little alterations here or there. She observed with a laugh. It's been a great while since I've been here. Yeah, just completely morally clueless. She does not know how to read the
Yeah.
room here. Complete. What word would be the best word to describe Lydia here?
Oblivious.
Oblivious to
Hmm.
the damage that she has
Hmm.
caused, because it's all
Yeah.
just a fun time for her. Because why? She's the center of attention.
That's
I
a
mean,
good point.
right?
A good point.
She's the center of attention. Good attention, bad attention. I remember, and this is an old phrase. I forget what it was. Vince McMahon, the owner of the WWE, something was going on, and he said, you know, any there's no such thing as bad press. You get the name, your name's out there. Any press is good
Mm.
press. Because it gets your name out there and makes people aware that you're there and you're putting on a show or whatever. And Lydia here, I'm the center of attention. Not for any good reason, for all the wrong reasons, but I'm the center of attention. I don't care. And that just shows tone deaf immaturity, um, a lack of wisdom and morality. And she's just so self centered. I mean, you take it over from here. I got nothing good to say about Lydia or Wickham.
No, I think that's right. I mean, she hasn't learned from her experiences at all. One thing I think is interesting. So the previous chapter, the mother, Mrs. Bennett, was talking about, well, maybe we can get this house for them so they can live near here, or we can get that house. And Mr. Bennett makes the
Mm-hmm.
comment, well, into one house in this neighborhood, they will never be admitted, and they will never be admitted in this house. Well, the very next chapter, I think
Yes.
he has them, he's admitted them. It's like he starts off with some sort of principle, but he can't stick to it.
Right.
His wife just begs to have them come visit, and he allows them in. And that's not to say that he shouldn't. I think that Austen may have kind of been making the point that he should have maybe taken a little firmer stance, like
Yes.
maybe asked for her to show some sign of repentance before you're welcome back in the fold, but you need to show some sort of contrition
Yes.
for what you've put us all through. But he doesn't, take any kind of stand on that. He starts off like, well, they're never going to be admitted in this house,
Mm-hmm.
and then he immediately backs down because he doesn't want to fight that battle. He's not willing to fight any kind of battle.
There's a complete lack of moral, a complete lack of shame, and a complete
Hmm.
lack of moral awareness going on here by
Yeah,
primarily Lydia Wickham and Mrs. Bennett, because they're trying to
yeah,
act like this is all just normal. They seemed, each of them, to have the happiest memories in the world. Nothing of the past was recollected with pain, and Lydia led voluntarily to subjects which her sisters would not have alluded to for the world. Only
Mm.
think of its being 3 months. It's been 3 months since I've been here, Lydia cried. It's 3 months since I went away. It seems but a fortnight. Oh, it just seemed like yesterday. I declare, good gracious, when I went away, I'm so sure I had no more idea of being married till I came back again. Though I thought it would be very good fun if I was. Because that's what all,
Oh, what a joke!
it's
What a
all
joke!
just fun. It's something to do. And they don't take that's all this is. That's what attention seekers do. It's just for fun. It means nothing. There's no gravity to it. You know what I'm saying? And that's when you
Yeah,
start disrespecting things that should be held sacred.
I love the part too where they're about to go into dinner, and the practice is you go in order of rank. So, like, I guess probably the mother and father would go first, then the older sister would go. And so the tradition would have been that Jane goes in first because she's the oldest sister. And then Lydia makes a big point of, well, I outrank you now. I get to go
Yes,
in front of
yes.
you,
Ah,
Jane, because now I'm married. I'm moving up to the head of the line now. It's
that
like, good for you.
aggravated that aggravated me. And that's when you
Oh,
know
I
that
know.
when you've established a good character and you're a good writer. That
Hmm.
aggravated me to no end, you know?
Hmm.
And Jane
She's
Austen,
proud of herself.
she did a very good job of creating that character. And she got her intentions with that character succeeded 100%.
Hmm.
So I give credit to Jane Austen for that, cuz that made
Yeah.
me mad. You know what I'm saying? Just to completely
Oh, I
out.
know.
It's an immature. Lydia is so immature and dangerous. She's dangerous in her immaturity. And she's got this dangerous view of marriage. It's destined to fail, Evie. And the reason this
Mm-hmm.
is so frustrating is because people do this sort of stuff all the time. People do this sort of thing with marriage all the time. They approach marriage in such a cavalier way. If it doesn't work out, it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't work out. We'll have some kids, 10, 15 years, we get divorced, and there'll be no consequences. There always are. She doesn't.
Yeah.
Lydia's just so focused on herself. And then this little note here: um, the voices of sanity are unpleasant to Lydia in her irrational ears. She said, "My uncle and aunt were horrid and unpleasant all the time I was with them. They were horrid and unpleasant. It wasn't you. They weren't giving me the attention that they should have, and it's their fault." And that's how Lydia sees it. I used to be a school teacher, and I remember this kid. Um, I had him set him up at the front of the class, and because he was just always, he wasn't a bad kid, but he was just rowdy, and I was constantly having to redirect him, And he came up to me. I
Mm-hmm.
was in the seventh grade, and he was in the eighth grade next year. He walked by my class. He was like, "Hey, Mr. Trisler," he said, "You remember when you used to get on to me for nothing?" And I said, "Yeah, I got on to you for nothing. I just picked you out one day and decided I'm just going to hassle this kid. You didn't have any role in it at all." And that's a typical attitude of an eighth grader, a seventh grader. He's getting on to me for nothing. I'm not doing anything wrong. But that's what he thought. And that's what Lydia thinks here. The problem's not with me. The problem's with those two old fogies, those two old codgers. They were
Yeah.
just so horrid and rude and unpleasant. And she's so superficial. She's thinking about Wickham's clothes too, his blue jacket or something or other. She's not thinking about his character. And Wickham's affection for Lydia was just what Elizabeth expected, how she expected to find it. Wickham did not have as much affection for Lydia as Lydia had for Wickham. And
Yeah.
Lydia, she even had the gall. And that's what you were talking about with Jane. And this was just obnoxious gall and audacity. "I take your place now, Jane. You must go lower than me because I'm a married woman." Then she goes on to tell her mother, "I am sure that all my sisters must envy me."
It's
I,
brazen.
yes. Oh my gosh, Evie. I was so, if I were Elizabeth, I would get up and put some sort of wrestling hold on my sister here and just, you stupid fool, you immature, ignorant fool, you know? And that's what she just wants the attention, and she wants people to be envious of her. And she took satisfaction in the envy of other people. I want other people to sin, to be envious of
Mm-hmm.
me. And there's a difference between wanting to be respected. I'm not talking about being respected because you've earned it.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about that. That's good. I'm talking about, I want people to wish they were me, and I get satisfaction knowing that other people are envious of me. That's just, it's terrible. It's a terrible way to live life.
Mm-hmm.
And she has that, your own sense of happiness is not independent if you base your happiness on other people. If you need other people to be happy about yourself, that's what I bring up Ayn Rand again. I brought up Jordan Peterson twice. I'm going to bring up Ayn Rand twice. That's what she calls secondhand living. You have to
Mm-hmm.
live. You have nothing of your own. You know
Yeah.
that makes you content. You need to have power over people, or you need the approval of other people to feel good about
Mm-hmm.
yourself. That's what she expertly called secondhand living. Firsthand living is, I'm happy in myself. I'm content in myself. I know I did a good job. Whether nobody else recognizes it or not, God does, and I do.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm happy. I don't need other people to tell me I did a good job. I don't need other people's approval. I don't need other people's envy. I'm happy in and of myself. And Lydia is so far in the opposite direction. She has no independent sense of happiness. She needs the envy of other people. What do you think here?
No, I think you're right, and it's an attitude of either I want to have power over other people, where they envy me, or I let other people have power over me, and that's not right. I mean, then that's not the same thing as like respect for the law, or respect for legitimate authority. It's letting other people dictate our own self-worth, and that's not right. That comes from God. Our worth comes from God's love for us, and not what somebody else thinks,
Right.
whether other people envy us, or whatever it is.
I like,
And
Elizabeth.
but Lydia has no sense of that, because it was that the father's love that might have modeled God's love for her as a child. She did not have that. I mean, it goes back to Mr. Bennet's failings, are I think at the root of a lot of this problem with Lydia, that she wants that attention, she wants that envy of other people, because she doesn't have that firm sense of self-worth that would come from
Yes.
being unconditionally loved.
She doesn't have that self-respect. She hasn't earned it. She
That's
doesn't
right.
have it. And Elizabeth
Because no one
does.
has taught her that.
Right, right, exactly. So I mean, it's a
Mm-hmm.
twofold problem there. The
It
parents didn't
really
do
is,
their
yeah.
job, and everybody, there are people who've had bad parents that turn out to be really good people.
That's true.
So Lydia, um, she has her faults, and her parents are at fault too. I mean, they're both,
Mm-hmm.
there's both plenty of blame to go around there. And Elizabeth does the right thing. She could bear this no longer. She got up and left the room and returned no more. She didn't
Mm-hmm.
create a big dramatic scene. She didn't start hurling insults. She just, I refuse to be a part of this. Everybody's acting like everything's okay, and it's not. And I refuse to be a
Mm-hmm.
part of this, because she's a woman of character and integrity and
Mm-hmm.
self-respect. And she said, I can't in good conscience sit here and act like everything's okay. So I'm not going to be mean. I'm not going to be rude. I'm just going to leave. And I thought that was the mature and wise thing to do. And but being a bigger sister, she said something to Lydia later on. I don't like the way that you get husbands, or something like that. I think
Yeah.
she said something like that to him. And so
Yeah.
she stands firm in her integrity. She wants to marry for the right reasons and do it the right way. Unlike Lydia just wants the attention, and eventually that marriage is going to crumble and fail. And later on, we're going to wrap up here. Later on, we find out that Darcy, he had tried to help make the situation better for Lydia, right? That all the damage that she was causing, and she was bringing a lot of shame on her family. He sought to restore Lydia's dignity. And
Yeah.
all of this for the sake of Elizabeth, because
Yeah.
he loves her. He found Lydia absolutely resolved on remaining where she was. She cared for none of her friends. She wanted no help of his. She would not hear of leaving Wickham. And this is sad but true. You can you can speak wisdom and truth to people, and you can reason with them all day long, and they can know and understand what you're saying is right. But if some people don't want to accept the truth, they don't want to change their circumstances, they're not going to do it. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And that's what Lydia does. Darcy tries to reason with her, and she refuses to be reasoned with. I, I will not. I am going to stay right where I am, and that's just that's a almost a sense of hopelessness that comes with that, because
Mm-hmm.
you want to try to change somebody, but if they don't want to be changed, they're not ready to change. They're not going to.
Yeah.
And so Darcy tried, and that's all good people can do. Sometimes people like Lydia have to learn for themselves. You know,
He had done his duty, and it was up to her to make her own decision. And it also does show the level of his regard for Elizabeth, that he
mhm.
would subject himself to having that conversation with Lydia, because that was unpleasant.
Yes, any sort of conversation with Lydia would be unpleasant to me, but he
Mhm.
did it strictly for Elizabeth's favor, or her benefit. And he tried to find as honorable a solution to this problem as he could. She chose to
Yeah.
remain, hidebound in her rebellion, and she didn't care about her family. She only cared about what she wanted. And Wickham was the same. Wickham still, he's no different. It's not like he's just along for the ride here. He's, like we mentioned, he's using her just like Lydia is using him.
Oh,
Marriage
yeah.
was just like an arrangement for Wickham. Something to,
Mhm.
like you said, something to do. And we'll wrap it up here with the I think it was Mr. Gardner's letter. And
Well, Lydia let slip that Mr. Darcy was involved, and so Elizabeth first gets
yes,
the hint that
yes,
Mr.
exactly.
Darcy has something to do with it. And so
Yes,
she writes to Mrs. Gardner.
and Darcy didn't, want his he didn't want his name brought into it, because he's not looking for
Right.
glory. He's just trying to make things right.
Mm-hmm.
And they mentioned here how much they liked Darcy. His
Mm-hmm.
behavior to us has in every respect been as pleasing as when we were in Derbyshire. The same guy he was
Mm-hmm.
there is the same guy he is here. That's
Mm-hmm.
because that's his character. His understanding and opinions all please me. He wants nothing but a little more liveliness. He wants of nothing but a little more liveliness, and that if he marries prudently, his wife may be able to teach him that. Again,
Mm-hmm.
he's got some little tweaks, but you put him with the right woman, and she'll smooth out those rough edges, and help him grow into the man that he's supposed to be. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and he hardly ever mentioned your name. He said he was very sly, but slyness seems to be the fashion, And Elizabeth's response, it said her heart did whisper that he had done it for her. So she realizes here again, Darcy was there for her. He does the typical man thing. He's going to go solve that problem, because
Right.
he doesn't like seeing the woman that he loves all upset. And he doesn't like seeing her family's name being
Mm-hmm.
dragged through the mud, because it upsets her. And Darcy says, I'm going to go do something about this. And anytime, that's how people's, that's what James says in the book of James. Your faith is perfected in your works. If you
Mm-hmm.
truly have faith, your works, that faith will come out in the works that you do, the way you think, the way you speak, the way you act. Your faith, if it's true, will manifest itself in that.
Mm-hmm.
And Darcy's love for Elizabeth is he's doing the work here. His works here are manifested, and his love is manifested in these works. He's trying to make it right
Yeah.
for Elizabeth's sake. And Lydia is not anything to him, but it's all for Elizabeth's sake, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I just like the way Austin worded it there. Her heart did whisper. It wasn't this big, loud clap of thunder, this big,
Mm-hmm.
loud sign or anything like that. Her heart whispered, he did that for you. And
Mm-hmm.
Darcy didn't want it to come out that he did it, but it came out. And it became clear that they owed the restoration of Lydia, her character, everything to Darcy.
Mm-hmm.
And what's that make you think about Darcy there?
Well, I really like that he did it just to take care of Elizabeth, not so he would look good in her eyes. Like, he
Yes.
doesn't do this and then rush onto the scene and make sure she knows everything that he did, so
Right.
that she'll fall at his feet. ingratitude. He doesn't want that. He just legitimately wanted to do something to serve her
Mm-hmm.
and didn't intend for her to find out about it.
Right.
I think it says everything.
Yes, and that's how you know the affection's real. He's not attention
Yeah,
seeking like Lydia. He
that's right.
just wants the people he cares about to be taken care of. And if I've got the means and the wherewithal to do it, I'm going to do it. And Darcy is
Mhm.
he's a good man. And Elizababeth
He's a
sees
good
that
man.
now.